Senator Smith.
Thank you, Chair Scott and Ranking Member. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being here. I will actually follow up on the question that my colleague, Senator Britt, just asked about rural transit. Mr. Congressman Molinaro, you and I spoke about this just yesterday afternoon. So I appreciate that question. So the FTA is going to be responsible for lots of grants and projects that are already in the pipeline. Things are already happening, and contractors have ordered materials, construction is in process, we've got engineers and electricians and the whole 9 yards showing up to work. And my question is, concern about what the administration has been doing to pause or halt or sometimes cancel projects, even projects that are across all other agencies that are already in process. So can you just talk about how you would approach this leading FTA, and are you able to commit that the funds that we authorized through the Infrastructure and Jobs Act, that those projects will keep moving and the funds keep flowing?
First, Senator, thank you for the time yesterday, and I think it was Graham. I hope Graham had a whirlwind of a day shadowing you. As I said yesterday, I don't know the status of the individual grants, but it is my commitment, as the President has asked and Secretary Duffy expects, I will continue to advocate for the release of dollars and certainly meeting the contractual obligations of the FTA. As I noted a few moments ago, I read yesterday, and this is the only information I have, public notice that some of those grant projects are now moving forward. I believe congressionally directed dollars are starting to flow. And so my commitment to you is to work with you and your team to advocate for and hopefully move effectively those dollars. And I would offer, I'm sorry, it is critically important, and I understand the reality that in order to move massive infrastructure projects and even small transit projects, that commitment from appropriation to ultimate obligation and contract is important to adhere to.
That's right. I think that's important. And of course, at the end of the day, if you have small rural transit agencies that are in the midst of a project and then that project gets held up because the federal government isn't living up to its commitments, then that's just money out of the pockets of my constituents who are going to have to figure out how to cover the costs other ways. And for Minnesota, of course, we send more money to the federal government than we get back, so this is a matter of great interest. Appreciate the conversation we had yesterday. Mr. Atkins, I want to talk to you about private funds. There's growing evidence that private fund managers are taking advantage of their unregistered status. 2022, the SEC warned that managers are not disclosing the full fees and expenses that their investors are paying and are using cherry-picked track records to artificially inflate their fund's performance. And in December, the Wall Street Journal reported that private markets, as a quote, come at the cost of higher fees, greater risk, more conflicts of interest, and less disclosure. And that matters because it means that workers' pension plans or retirement accounts get saddled with those higher fees. So, Mr. Atkins, do you agree that private fund managers are charging higher fees and expenses to their investors than their public market counterparts?
Senator, there's a whole range of fees that are done, but I would, to your point there, as far as the not being truthful in disclosure, 10B applies to whether it's a public or private security. So that, I think, is one way to protect investors. If there be any bad disclosure in that way.
So you're saying that investors should be protected by making sure that they know what those fees are going to be in advance?
These are accredited investors and people who are not retail investors, and so they have the means to do investigation. But if the disclosures are incorrect, then or materially incorrect, then that's actionable.
So the typical management fee for a private fund can be 4 times higher than the annual fee for a mutual fund, and that doesn't even include the profits, of course, that those fund managers keep for themselves, which can push up to 20%. And multiple studies have found that private funds barely, I should say, beat the stock market if they do at all. Do you think that private fund managers, what's your take on what we ought to be doing to make sure that this is fair for people?
Well, I think people who are investing in these sorts of funds, are more sophisticated in general than others, or they have the ability to hire advisors, and so they don't need to pay. There's like other alternatives. You don't necessarily need to invest in those types of instruments.
I think this is a matter of concern, and I think that as these funds become, it's the pensions of my constituents that are in these funds, and it's not a good thing.
Well, I'm happy to work with you on that.
Thank you.
Senator Warnock.